Hi everyone, David and Gino here, taking a look at the feature race at Saratoga on Saturday. The 11th race on their 12 race card is the Grade 1 Coaching Club American Oaks, going the 9 furlong distance, one lap of the Saratoga main track for the 3-year-old fillies. And Gino, only a field of 5 signed on. We don't have a lot of quantity in this race, but there definitely is serious quality with the morning line favorite, the number 3 Torpedo Anna. She's passed every test so far during her 3-year-old campaign, and she's 1-2 on my morning line for a reason.
Yeah, and actually, even besides her, there are 4 graded stakes winners in the field, 3 grade 1 winners too. So while she definitely is the horse to beat, hands down, she'll have to deal with a couple other nice runners. And like most races, David, it'll just come down to the pace of this race, because not only is she the class of the field, she's really sharp, she's in great form, but she is most likely the fastest horse in here. And I think unless they want to get really aggressive with Leslie's Rose, which they could, she probably will have her say of the race as far as how fast she wants to go early. She has no problem sitting just off either. She's not like she's one-dimensional. That's what makes a filly like Torpedo Anna very tough to beat.
Yeah, as you say, there is real quality in this field aside from Torpedo Anna. It's a compact group, but there are accomplished runners in this field. But the fact that Torpedo Anna is considered such a likely winner is due to how visually impressive she's been in her recent starts, the speed figures that she's posted. And as you pointed out, this Timeform US pace projector, she's supposed to be in the driver's seat in this race. There's just no other speed to really press her. I mean, maybe Leslie's Rose gets aggressive, but in recent starts, they've been content to let her rate or draft in behind the leaders. So they'd be changing up the game plan with her if they really went after Torpedo Anna in the early stages. And I'm not sure that would really serve Leslie's Rose's cause in this race. So Torpedo Anna, this pace projector just makes her especially tough to beat for a horse that already looked like the most likely winner.
Yeah, what you did right there too, I think, is a fascinating thing we have to do as handicappers and as gamblers when we're trying to play the races out in our head. Because as we can get to the field, one of the horses I think if you want to make a case for to try to beat Torpedo Anna would be Candied, but Candied definitely needs help. Right. So if Leslie's Rose goes after Torpedo Anna, it will probably compromise Leslie's Rose, but it would help a horse like Candied. So if you're Leslie's Rose, what would you do? Would you try to maybe run for second in here or sit behind Torpedo Anna? Or do you want to go try to battle her? It is a very honest, logical question you might ask yourself, especially for a horse like Leslie's Rose, who could look and say, hey, we might just be second best behind this filly. And if we sit second all the way around, we can get a nice grade 1 placing in here and take home a big piece of the pie. Or do they say, hey, let's go after her. Let's see if we can try to beat her. I am fascinated to see what tactics Johnny V chooses as he jumps aboard for the first time.
And it is worth noting that Leslie's Rose and Candide both go out for the Todd Pletcher barn. Different ownership, obviously, but as we speak about Candide and what she needs to win this race, let's take a look at her most recent effort when she was a winner of the Ladies' Secret, actually beating older horses this day. Only a 4-horse field, so she's used to competing in small fields like this. But this was definitely a big step forward for Candide, who had been mildly disappointing when she was the beaten favorite coming off the layoff in the Ashland. Obviously, this was a filly last year during her 2-year-old season who showed a lot of quality and potential, finishing third in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies. And I think she took that step forward second off the layoff in this Ladies' Secret, earning a 99 buyer, which does match the best number of Torpedo Anna, though she's going to have to reproduce it against what I think is a tougher field than she faced last time.
Yeah, this is a tough group. And she's one of those fillies that she has been a little bit disappointing overall in her body of work, even for a filly who's 3 for 5 in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Filly. She kind of bobbled. She was last early. She was moving up nicely in between horses. She got caught in between horses. I thought her 5-wide move was pretty good that day behind a horse who sat a very, very nice trip. Came back in the Ashland, kind of lost positioning, moved to the outside, just had a really wide trip. I think she's a bit intriguing, and why I probably will, go back to her is she's just a horse who I've had a big kind of horse crush on for quite some time, and I've been a big fan of hers. So I've been waiting for her to be able to put races together and kind of string them together and see the best that we can get from her. She's proven at Saratoga, and I think with the right setup, she is not too far behind the quality of Torpedo Anna. It'll just come down to the running style and can she get that setup in a small field like this? I'm hoping she can, and I'm expecting a big effort on Saturday from Candy.
The setup is going to be critical for her because she
Oh
got a
yeah.
pretty good trip in a small field last time in the Lady Secret, and we'll see if she can be as close to the pace and within striking distance at the top of the stretch of this race. It is worth noting the runner-up from her last race, Honor D Lady, did come back to win the Delaware Handicap with a similar speed figure, so validating the thing that Lady Secret got. We'll see if she can reproduce it. The number 2, Barbara Tina, she's the outsider in this field. She's stepping up against Grade 1 company for the first time. I thought she's coming off a pretty good effort for her. I mean, it was a really game performance to get the job done at Churchill Downs last time. That was her final start going out for the Brad Cox barn. This time she's going to be in the stable of George Weaver. She just needs to take a big step forward to step up against a field of this quality.
Yeah, there are levels when we're looking at races and we're looking at this caliber of horses, and she just has not shown anything fast enough to compete with this based on speed figures and coming out of some of her races. So, she's very honest overall. She's been in the money in 5 of 6 starts, in the exact day in 5 of 6. But she'll come into the Weaver barn now for the first time, and I think they'd be very happy with hitting the board in here.
Yeah, and it was a live race last time. The third place finisher came back to improve her Beyer by 6 points. The fifth place finisher, Just Basking, came back to win the Iowa Oaks, improving by 14 Beyer points. So it maybe is a race that's a little better than it looks, but it would have to be a lot better for her to be competitive with a horse like the number 3, Torpedo Anna, who we'll discuss next. And we'll check out her most recent victory in the Acorn when she was beating today's rival Leslie's Rose. We'll highlight both of them here, the top 2 finishers from this race. And it really hasn't been close in her 3-year-old season for Torpedo Anna. Every one of her starts has looked just like this. She travels well into the race, sets honest paces, and just draws away and breaks the hearts of her competition as she comes onto the wire here, opening up to win by about 5.5 lengths. And you're not going to get any price on her anymore. She's well established as the leader of this division, but she just appears to find herself in another favorable pace scenario. She's looked like the best horse in this division for the past few months, and I think it's going to be pretty tough to beat her in this Coaching Club Oaks.
Yeah, and at this point of the year too, she's scaring others off, right? Like some of these fillies who have been around her, they've been close to her. They're going to go and try to pick other spots because in races like this, she's just so tough. Her speed figures are ascending this year too. She's just improving. And with speed horses, sometimes they can be one-dimensional, and that's where you feel like you can beat them when there's a big field and a lot of other speed. Maybe they can be vulnerable. She's completely fine sitting off. And even in the way that I'm trying to envision this race, because I'm wanting to make a case for a horse like Candide, if Leslie's Rose were to get really aggressive, it's not like Torpedo Anna has to go head and head and battle with her. She'd be fine letting her go and sitting second right behind her and showing us that she can do that. To me, it just in a small field, that's the key, because sometimes these small fields, things can get a little bit tricky. So if it is her and Leslie's Rose kind of slowing things down and keeping a horse like Candide in the race, and then they're both kind of going at each other. And you also pointed out the fact that Pletcher has the 2 of them. So I do think that Pletcher will be pretty content trying to get Leslie's Rose to at least stay as close to Torpedo Anna early as possible and try to take a little bit out of Torpedo Anna, which would also help Candide. But yeah, I mean, overall, she's proven at Saratoga. It's very tough to knock her as a horse. And I love, you and I are horse racing fans. We're gamblers, but we're fans of the sport on top of it. And when you see horses like this in good form, it's just fun to watch them a lot of the time. So I would need even more than 5-2 on Candide to actually bet her in this race from a value-based standpoint. But Torpedo Anna is just such a cool filly.
Yeah, and unless Torpedo Anna takes a big step backwards in her form, which is kind of hard to foresee based on what she's done so far this year, something's going to have to be different this time for her to get beat. And as you were alluding to, the number 4, Leslie's Rose, kind of key to that. She's the horse that was the distant runner-up in that Acorn last time. And we'll see what the tactics are with her, because she was impressive coming from just off the pace, getting that pocket trip in the Grade 1 Ashland 3 starts ago, her final prep for the Kentucky Oaks. And obviously, the Oaks just didn't go right for her. It seemed like she was one of the horses that really was not handling that sloppy track at Churchill. So I think that's the kind of race that you can fairly just draw a line through, because she came back to form last time in the Acorn. I thought she ran a race that day and she was just no match for Torpedo Anna. Maybe they get more aggressive this time and try to make Torpedo Anna work harder on the front end. I don't know if that really serves Leslie's Rose's purpose, but we'll see if it helps anybody else in the field if they do decide to employ those tactics.
Yeah, and the problem with Leslie's Rose, I think when you're just looking at her overall body of work, that last race really felt like the race to play her. I bet her in that last race. I thought she ran really well coming off of the Kentucky Oaks toss, because when you look at her pattern, a lot of it makes sense. She was a little disappointing at Gulfstream Park earlier in the season, and then following that, it's like everyone just jumped completely off her in the Ashland, and she gets a great trip down on the inside. She was a fantastic price that day, and then going into the Oaks, she kind of felt like coming off of that perfect trip, she was going to be a little bit overvalued. And then she got a bad draw that day, and you could kind of put a line right through it. So I like horses like this when you go race by race, and a lot of it makes sense. But that last effort, which was one that made sense, I just can't see how she turns the tables on Torpedo Anna. Maybe we can flip their trips a little bit. And maybe we can say that Leslie's Rose could get the jump on Torpedo Anna here. And the last time they raced, it was opposite. I just don't know if that's the difference between 4 or 5 lengths that we've seen between these two. So yeah, I can't envision Leslie's Rose getting out in front of Torpedo Anna. I can see her being a nuisance to Torpedo Anna in here, and maybe setting it up for Candied if we're going to try to beat the really, really quality 3-year-old filly here in Anna.
And another horse who would need a setup coming from off the pace is the number 5 Intricate. And it should be noted, she is the only horse to have ever finished ahead of Torpedo Anna, doing that in the Grade 2 Goldenrod last year when it really wasn't close that day. Intricate beat Torpedo Anna by over 5 lengths. And in retrospect, Torpedo Anna had some excuses that day, coming back on short rest and getting off to a poor start. But Intricate was really good at the end of last year. I mean, she was visually impressive, winning that race with a big turn of foot. Things haven't really gone according to plan, though, since she's come back as a 3-year-old. She was a pretty disappointing in a couple of starts at Fairgrounds over the winter, particularly in that Fairgrounds Oaks, where she just never got anything going, getting back on a fast track. Was off for some time after that, returned from a brief freshening in the Monomoy Girl last time, and I think it was a step in the right direction because she was making a strong late bid at Our Pretty Woman that day, and it was a race that really favored the winner's running style. There was no pace on, and Intricate was closing into a slow pace. So I think that was a big step forward from where she was over the winter, but she's going to have to obviously take another huge step forward to improve on that 2-year-old form and get back to the goldenrod form when she actually beat Torpedo Anna.
And I think if you go through her races this year, she shows up in the Rachel Alexandra. She's behind Tarifa that day. That was a really good start to the year. It's a great starting point for her. And you just figured, looking at her form, she's going to take a nice step forward, and she could peak heading into a race like the Kentucky Oaks. Then on that March 23rd race in the Fairground Oaks, she was just really disappointing that day. I think they said she exited that race with significant mucus, and so they gave her some time off before her next start, which ended up being that Monomoy Girl. And while it wasn't a win and maybe a little bit disappointing on the speed figures, if knowing that narrative and knowing that maybe something went a little bit off, they wanted to give her some time, maybe she wasn't even quite back to 100% yet, or they were expecting her to need that race a little, I could see her step forward. So all of the pattern in the races makes sense to me, David, but will that step forward even be enough now to compete with 3 really talented fillies? I mean, she's going to have to deal with 3 other really nice horses who have proven themselves against, graded stakes company this year. So for me, I'm just a little bit cold on her when I'm comparing her to the others, but overall, a very talented filly. I would not be shocked at all if she hit the board and got a better trip and just took a big step forward here. I just need to see it.
As we throw up our picks for this coaching club, American Oaks, I really thought long and hard about putting Intricate on top because I've been a fan of hers, and I think her Monomoy Girl performance is underrated. Horses have come back out of that race to run faster. I think the buyer's a little low for that race due to the pace just not materializing in the early stages, and I think she ran well within the context of that race. She would just need to get so much faster to beat Torpedo Anna, and I've been trying to beat Torpedo Anna in every start of her 3-year-old season so far. I'm done. She's really good, and I acknowledge it at this point, and I've got her on top this race, so I'm going to eat the chalk, but you've got at least one idea to take a shot against her.
Yeah, and I think how you were kind of talking about Intricate is sort of how I feel about Candied, one that I followed along. I always thought she was kind of towards the top of the division, and she's never just been able to string races together. She's had a little bit of bad luck. She's been a little quirky. Even when you watch her races, she's kind of inefficient late. I actually think there might be a little bit more of a ceiling for her to get to, because sometimes her stride, she has not changed leads, or sometimes she's kind of leaning on the left lead a little bit there. So from a gambling standpoint, though, I think we always have to kind of have our value line, right, David, and say what kind of a price would I need and what kind of a price would I demand. I think I need at least 7-2. or above to make a wager, to feel like that was enough value. Because if she is in that like strong second choice, I just don't know if that's enough value for me to go against Torpedo Anna. So I'll watch this race individually, and if we can get 4-1, maybe I go in on Candy there. Otherwise, this will be one that you keep an eye on and see, okay, can anyone maybe make a dent in that margin that Torpedo Anna has kind of grown in this 3-year-old filly division. And it'll be very curious if a good performance here. Do you think, now knowing that Mystic Dan has not been pointed to the Travers, we could see her show up there?
It's been talked about. We'll see what she does on Saturday. Obviously, an impressive performance would probably intensify some of that chatter and talk about whether or not she could be competitive against the boys. But let's cross that bridge when we come to it. First up is this coaching club, American Oaks. You're taking a small shot against Torpedo Anna with the number 1 Candide. I've got the favorite on top in this Grade 1 race on Saturday at Saratoga. Good luck if you're playing the races this weekend.